You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Loman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Loman.
Hey, welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about children being in charge of our country and how we look forward to that. Little kids dictating policy to us adults, like what happened this week with Greta. And we're not just going to talk about Greta Thunberg, although, we'll talk a little bit about that, but I don't just want to, that to me is everything she had to say. Doug, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not interested in her. She was created by the media, and, the headline is, young girl gives speech at UN. Who cares? You know what I mean? Like, who really cares? The only reason that we do is because she's all over the media and it's being shoved down our throats. And Doug and I were talking about it. Doug wrote a great article quite a while ago. Let me get the date on this. 2013. The headline is Obama and the Left, the Minds of Children, on his blog, The Rational Capitalist. You can find that at theratcap.com. And I'm going to read part of that because he basically makes the case that everything the left wants, it's like a child's fantasy. It's the mentality of a child. And then we were talking about the Parkland shooter kids, and then now Greta Thunberg. And the left is always trotting out kids to sell its message. And so that's what we're going to talk about today.
And it's not coincidental.
It's not coincidental because it like matches their mentality. And you notice the right never does it because we're all like grown-ups. We want to bring in logic and history and complexity. And they just are like, here now, I feel like I don't want the earth to warm anymore. So
I want to be a boy.
You, do something. Yeah, I want to be a boy. Make
I
it,
want
make
a
it
toy.
so. It's like a bunch of Star Trek Qs running around, like deciding how we're going to run our non-Q society.
Exactly.
So
and then you'll go through it, but you told me about this episode you remembered, and you were going to go of the Twilight Zone. Everyone's got to stay tuned for this.
So we're going to get it. There's a Twilight episode that really just demonstrates what our world would look like if we let the children run things. And this is the world that the Democrats want for us. If they didn't have any kids to trot out and shove down our throats and say, oh, you can't criticize their ideas because they're kids or they're autistic or whatever. Let's find the most retarded kid, and then we really can't criticize them. This girl has problems. She's obviously got like a psychosis. She's got Asperger's. She's got OCD. Why would we listen to a 16-year-old with all those problems, let alone a 50-year-old with all those problems?
Right.
So, but she matches the latest wish list, the Christmas wish list, that even my daughter makes a more rational Christmas wish list than these people. She knows when she asks, when my daughter writes her Christmas wish list, she doesn't put unicorn on there because she knows it's a fantasy creature. Right? And she's 5.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So there's a Twilight Zone episode. We'll play some clips from that, and we'll get into the whole thing here. But let's start with, I want to start with your article, Doug.
Okay.
Obama and the Left, the Minds of Children. And I'm just going to read a little bit from it. Anyone with kids has had some variant of the following conversation. Kid, I want a toy. Parent, no. Kid, why? Parent, toys cost money. Kid, so just get some money. Parent, and where should I get the money? Kid, just go to the bank or use that plastic card thing. Like that's the depth of understanding that a child has about money. They don't understand. It seems to just kind of materialize magically. They don't
go to
get
the bank and get it.
So more from the article. To a child, this is a simple matter. He sees you buy things with money and just assumes that whenever you want something, you just conjure up the money to pay for it. In other words, he cannot yet grasp cause and effect. He doesn't abstract that you must earn the money first, then offer that money to someone in exchange for something. He assumes that you want something first, Then, for some reason, there's this weird adult ritual where you must offer this green paper stuff for it. Ultimately, it is just the desire to have something that is the primary, not the work or production that came before it. Because they regard the green stuff as a mere formality that doesn't represent anything real. This leads a child to the following conclusion. Kid, I wish everyone just had a lot of green stuff so you could just have whatever you want. Or I wish everything were free. While this seems like a cute anecdote to illustrate a child's first stage of conceptual development, it is actually much more than that. It represents the conceptual level of the entire left, including the president, the Federal Reserve Chairman, the Nobel Prize-winning Keynesian economists. With respect to economics, I have blogged about this phenomenon, blah, blah, blah. There you go, reference. There you go, tooting your horn.
That's right. Read more of me.
Naturally, this phenomena is not restricted to the field of economics. At the outset of the gun control debate, where profound conceptual level abstractions were being considered regarding the government's role in protecting individuals from crime, the purpose and meaning of the Second Amendment, the state's role in regulating the sale of firearms, the state's role with regard to the mentally ill vis-a-vis criminal behavior, the Obama administration offered letters not from adult constituents or legal scholars, but from grade school children. According to this report, the White House released handwritten letters to the president from some of the children who will be at the White House when Obama unveils his plan to prevent gun violence. The kids offer their own ideas on gun control, ideas that go significantly further than the president's plan. Naturally, like with money, the children operate at a first-order conceptual stage. They know that a man with guns killed children. Therefore, they ask the president to stop this from happening by getting rid of guns. It's simple. Yeah, so that's the article. I encourage you to read the whole thing. And that is such a good integration, Doug, that the reason that they trot out the kids, first of all, it's effective in stopping criticism, which I'm glad to see. Post-Trump, the right no longer falls for that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen an endless stream of Greta memes. Just ripping her to shreds. Nobody cares that she's 16. Nobody cares that she's got Asperger's. I mean, in the sense that we're not going to criticize her or her ideas or the fact that they've trotted her out in front of us and are shoving her down our throats. We are criticizing it. And 4 years ago, we would not have. Not like today. Trump has unleashed the right. We no longer put up with this shit. And I'm glad to see that. So that's very encouraging.
Yeah. And by the way, your Facebook page is the repository of about 1,000 of these awesome memes. If you want to just laugh for about an hour straight, go through Sunny's page.
Well, it was funny because I was like scrolling through my Facebook feed and I'm like, God damn, it's all this Greta. I'm just seeing just Greta. Isn't anything else happening? And so I gave in. I'm like, finally, okay, fuck it. I go over to my page and I posted a Greta meme and I said, post your Greta memes here.
Yeah.
And oh my God. It's like, I mean, that's one of my most popular posts ever because people are posting so many memes and it's being shared around like crazy so everybody can read the comments because the memes they're off the charts. Yeah.
And it really is disturbing. And I think that people might have trouble kind of figuring out or pinning down exactly why it's so disturbing. We know there on the surface, you think, well, they're using children as a propaganda device, and that's absolutely true. And the left has always done that, going back, to the Nazis and the Hitler Youth and whatever. But so the left's always trotting out children. But what I was saying in the article is, it's not just that they callously or cynically are using children as a prop to tug at your heartstrings, which is also true because it ties into the epistemology. But the deeper root is they think on the level of a child. And so to them, this is sort of like, look, even children get it. Get rid of the guns.
Right. Even kids get it.
Guns kill
It's
people.
so simple. No, it's actually not
Just, you need
simple.
money,
Yeah.
print money.
Print money.
You need money, print money. You get rid of guns. Someone needs health care, give them health care. You make it
Right.
free. You got
Right.
to go to, everyone needs to go to college, so
There's
just make it free.
there's poor
And
people
they
in El
can't go
Salvador.
beyond,
Bring them over.
give them money. Yeah, give them
Give
aid.
them America.
People need housing, make public housing.
Yeah.
What could go wrong,
Or
And
just
so,
even like this whole thing with the ripping the kids at the border thing. Just you get this feeling of, oh my God, I would like being separated from my child would be a nightmare. Who cares if there's child trafficking and like just
yeah.
blank out all the facts. Like kids are actually being hurt. And another transparent way of telling that this whole and what's behind this, the people behind this are not sincere. If they were sincere about cleaning up the planet, they'd be having this speech in India and China. We all know that that's where all the fucking ocean pollution is coming from. We're banning straws, and India and China are the 90+% polluters of the ocean.
Right.
But Americans in Western countries where all of those straws get sort of recycled and taken care of, we can't have straws anymore. So the sincerity of the puppeteers is not real, because it really is just an attempt to make more money. They've made a lot of money off of the eco stuff. They've gotten a lot of new powers. And so that's really what's going on. But
it's mostly about power, about them seizing control and using the green movement as a facade to consolidate and grow their own power and control over the economy. And so, and this first order thing, though, it's so pervasive, and we just see it constantly. And in fact, it's really the basis of the entire economic policy of the United States. And so we kind of laugh at this, but it's real. And this is how these people think. And I think it's another reason why they don't see their own bias. When you talk to them about, don't you see, your own bias in the media and stuff, and they just can't. No, they don't see the bias. This is self-evident to them. People need college, so give them college. People need houses, give them houses. Guns are killing people, so get rid of the guns. This is how these people think, and it's because it's childish and because it's first order, and they don't consider unintended consequences, and they don't understand the complexities of these issues.
The moment you start talking about it too, their eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
So the only response is to mock them. That's all we have left, because you cannot reason with an environmentalist. They really do believe. I was telling Doug that I have au pairs. I get these au pairs from Europe, because I'm cheap. No, just kidding. I like the cultural exchange.
Indentured servants.
We've had some French girls. I treat them like servants, right? You would not believe the number of laws around like how many hours they can work. Like everything's very, very tightly controlled to avoid exploitation. Because otherwise I would. But
right. Well, you're a greedy capitalist.
So, but I've had two of them separately create their own trash in their room for recycling, because I didn't recycle, and their brain explodes. I mean, they cannot live life without recycling. They're so brainwashed, Well, and if you try to have a conversation with them and say, look, this is just a religious ritual. It actually costs more energy, more coal burned to recycle than not. More gas is expended to recycle than to not recycle. And they just, it's like it goes in one ear and out the other.
Because it's first order. They just think of the trash. The trash is building up. Yeah. And they just think of the trash in a pile. And they can't reason through, industrial production and where things come from and where they go and they just can't do that. It's just trash.
Crazy. Yeah.
And again, what I was getting to with this as well kind of ties into what you're saying, which is that because they're at a child's conceptual level, it also accounts for the level of vitriol and the emotionalism because what their thinking method is precognitive. So just like a child who throws a tantrum and yells and screams and cries, this is their method of debate. Like you were just saying, they don't want to reason. They don't want to sit down and say, well, let me look at the facts. Let me look at let me try and understand this better. Let me try and understand economics or history, all the things that we're interested in and study. They just get sad. They get angry. They get triggered. They need a safe space. They need a safe dog, or what do they call the animals? The emotional therapy animals or whatever. I mean, they need like cognitive therapy when you criticize them, because they don't know how to deal with it, because everything is at an emotional precognitive level. And it's literally like dealing with children. And like you just said, I don't know how to deal with this. I mean, it almost seems like it's going to lead to war, because this sort of precognitive emotionalism that they're inculcating in the kids, and I see this too with my own son who's in junior high now, just the constant propaganda that he's subjected to with this stuff. And he's very smart, so he pushes back against it, but he's one of 300 kids.
Well, when we were doing our episode on 1619, which go check out, everybody, because I think it was a really good episode, and Alex Marriott joined us, historian Alex Marriott. But when we were doing that, we were talking about the materials that they were creating for children to indoctrinate them with this new idea that slavery is the central fact of American history.
Yeah.
And the method was, it wasn't shocking or anything, but it was just very revealing. The method in these materials was, okay, you read this essay, and then you're supposed to pick out of the essay evidence for her point. And there was never can you think of any evidence against it? Can you think of any evidence in your own life for the point? Like, it was just stay in this bubble of the essay and find the evidence for her argument. Well, of course it's going to be there. But it's like reading comprehension more than it is thinking. And they're selling that as the analytical piece, of the whole thing. So this is how they're being trained. And I think also contributing to this is that life is so comfortable. So they're not actually faced with reality very much in real life.
Exactly.
And so, if we were still living in the farm life, you couldn't ignore reality and avoid consequences. And you would have a firsthand, smacked across your face daily lesson about how to think and how to take in facts and integrate
It's
them.
so true. It's so true. And it's hard to know how, the advancement of technology and the ease of our lives,
Yeah.
as people sit around listening to us talk on their phones right now.
That's why kids grow up and they leave the Democrat Party. Because you grow up, you get out in the real world, you have a job for a little while, you get married, have kids, you start to go, wait a sec. You need a little bit of life. You need a little bit of wisdom and reality. And I think that kids today don't get as much as they used to because life is easier. And I'm kind of glad it is, but simultaneously, we are training them to be idiots.
Well, and why do you think that the left pushes for more college subsidies? They want people to be infantilized forever.
Yeah.
You go on your parents' insurance till you're 26. You go to college on a government subsidy, and then what do? They want the kids to vote. And then they want immigrants who aren't familiar with our system, who they treat as children. And what do they want to do? They keep minorities in a spiral and cycle of poverty to keep them down so that they have a source of voters who, so it's sort of like when the left goes in, like when the Khmer Rouge went in and killed anyone with glasses in Cambodia, like anyone who isn't, all the intellectuals die. I mean, they want anyone who's intelligent to go away.
Right.
They don't want people thinking. It's like you've got your red book, and it's like the Maoist Red Guards. You just kill anyone who dissents. And this all ties together. The emotionalism, the mob mentality, the sense of safety in a collective.
The power structures using the children to sell a message. Yeah, it's all like it's a freaking playbook. But it's not even a playbook. It's like it's inevitable. It's natural. It's natural, right? Just like socialism will be corrupt because you can't have a system based on stealing without promoting thieves. And the best thieves among you will rise to the top, which is why we have Hillary Clinton and, you know, these incredibly advanced crooks who are at the top of the Democrat Party. And it's natural. It's inevitable. There's no socialism without thievery and corruption, because you can't have that. So the real contradiction would be socialism without it. It's just, anyway. So back to Greta for just a second. The memes, some of the memes were comparing her to like Veruca from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where she's like, I want an Oompa Loompa now, you know? And how she's just a swell. You know, this poor girl, she's going to grow up and be so embarrassed if her Asperger's allows her to feel embarrassment.
I doubt it.
But the comparison to other sort of bratty kids, like, it made me think of this Twilight Zone episode, because, and your article, by the way, just integrating all of this together, because there's this old Twilight Zone episode where it's a horror movie where the 6-year-old is in charge because he has some kind of power with his brain. He can do anything. He can make anything happen, like Q from Star Trek. And so his parents and all the adults around him have to walk on eggshells. That's an understatement. To stop him from killing them, basically, or disappearing them.
Disappearing them to the cornfield.
Sending them to the cornfield, which is a euphemism for just disappearing them. But he lit things on fire. He's turned animals into monsters.
He turns one guy into a jack-in-the-box.
Right. He's right. He just does, you know, he can do anything. And so...
And he can hear you think.
He can, yeah.
So you have to think good thoughts around him, because if he hears you thinking a bad thought, he can disappear you as well.
So to me, like, I'm thinking this is the world that they're asking us to accept, this nightmare world where undeveloped kids who really need guidance and really need parents, and those of us with a more advanced wisdom and context can say, well, you know, I understand that that's scary, but let's look at the facts. Or sit down and shut up. The adults are coming in the room. Like, sometimes a kid needs to hear something kind of harsh. And, you know, I'm not really that kind of parent. But I assume, though, like somebody like Greta, she should not be speaking at the UN. It should be a sit down, honey, go home, go to school, let the adults handle this. That's what she should be told. But instead, she's in charge, and her emotional state is supposed to lead policy in this country. And in this Twilight Zone episode, it leads to, you know, a nightmare of a horror show. And I'm just going to play the intro from this. Did you want to say something before I do that?
Well, I was just going to say, if you ever, everyone should go watch this episode. It's the full length design. It's called It's a Good Life, The Twilight Zone. And if you ever want to, like, experience the sense of a suffocating, like Orwellian dystopia, watch this episode, because it's just chilling.
You know,
and it's
that's a
so
really good
relevant
point.
to today.
That's a good point, because today, when they've got that face technology, like I'm hearing in China, they're developing the ability to read facial expressions, like minute ones, the ones that like people use to tell if a criminal is lying or not, like these experts that watch like a flick of your eyebrow. And so they're creating software to detect this in faces, so they know what you're thinking.
Right.
Holy shit. Plus, you know, there's no question that someday we may develop technology to actually tap into the brain and read the circuitry. Yeah.
Well, that's what Facebook just bought a company that's purporting to do that. That's, you know, able to like read brains. Electronic.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and
that
you
was
have
an
that
article.
guy who like raised all that money, and he was hired by Anheuser-Busch, and then this is the Dayton, Ohio guy or whatever. And then some reporter decides, he's a good guy. I'm going to look and see if he's really a bad guy. I'm going to check out all his tweets from his whole freaking life. And he posted something when he was 16 years old that is problematic.
Well, it was just a quote. It was just from Tosh 2.0. He just like retweeted Tosh 2.0, which is on Comedy Central, and from 7 years ago.
Remember when we used to laugh and find things funny, everybody? Yeah, so he retweets Tosh, and for that, he loses his deal with Anheuser-Busch. Like, he's canceled. And if that doesn't remind you of this episode where this child can just read your mind and cancel you because because what you're thinking is problematic for him, we are really living this in a way already.
But the other coincidence about this, Sonny, is that the kid in this episode, if you remember, he doesn't like techtechnology.
Yes.
So he reduces everybody back to the Stone Age.
Yeah,
he gets rid of electricity.
Let me play the
go
intro
ahead.
so you can hear that. I'm just going to go to that.
Rod Serling.
Tonight's story on the Twilight Zone is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of introduction. This, as you may recognize, is a map of the United States, and there's a little town there called Peaksville. On a given morning not too long ago, the rest of the world disappeared, and Peaksville was left all alone. Its inhabitants were never sure whether the world was destroyed and only Peaksville left untouched, or whether the village had somehow been taken away. They were, on the other hand, sure of one thing, the cause. A monster had arrived in the village. Just by using his mind, he took away the automobiles, the electricity, the machines, because they displeased him. And he moved an entire community back into the Dark Ages, just by using his mind. Now I'd like to introduce you to some of the people in Peaksville, Ohio. This is Mr. Fremont. It's in his farmhouse that the monster resides. This is Mrs. Fremont. And this is Aunt Amy, who probably had more control over the monster in the beginning than almost anyone. But one day she forgot. She began to sing aloud. Now the monster doesn't like singing, so his mind snapped at her and turned her into the smiling, vacant thing you're looking at now. She sings no more. And you'll note that the people in Peaksville, Ohio, have to smile. They have to think happy thoughts and say happy things, because once displeased, the monster can wish them into a cornfield or change them into a grotesque walking horror. This particular monster can read minds, you see. He knows every thought. He can feel every emotion. Oh, yes, I did forget something, didn't I? I forgot to introduce you to the monster. This is the monster. His name is Anthony Fremont. He's 6 years old with a cute little boy face and blue, guileless eyes. But when those eyes look at you, you'd better start thinking happy thoughts, because the mind behind them is absolutely in charge. This is the Twilight Zone.
Oh my God, that's
dun,
like
dun,
our
dun,
life.
dun, dun, dun.
That's
I
our
know.
life. Okay, so that's like Greta, you know. And hey, the funniest thing about that, whoever wrote that episode had kids, because I was riding in the car the other day with my 5-year-old, and we were singing together Frere Jacques. And then she got upset that I was singing it. She wanted to just sing it. And she got upset. Like, she was so mad. And she screamed at me, I wanted to sing it, and you're singing over me. You know, just like really upset. And I get to my friend's house, and my friend, that's where we were headed. My friend has a 5-year-old girl. And I said to her, this woman has 4 children, and I said, what should I have done? Like, I just explained this thing, and I said, I just shut up. I just became like a deer in headlights. You know, I didn't know how to respond to that, because it just kind of like, thought we were having this nice moment together singing this song, and my freaking child, like, she got mad.
Sent you to the cornfield.
Sent me to the cornfield. Oh my God. And my friend says to me, oh yeah, I'm not allowed to sing either.
Perfect.
And then I was thinking about how the Ukrainian prime minister said, the only person who puts pressure on me is my 6-year-old. Did you hear that quote today?
No, I didn't hear him say that.
Yeah,
I saw the conference.
You know, they were talking about Donald Trump putting pressure on him and stuff, and his quote response is, by the way, nobody puts pressure on me but one person, and that's my 6-year-old.
Right? Totally true.
So, yeah, you want the kids in charge, everybody? I mean, we don't. The right doesn't. We don't trot our kids out. When I grew up in inner city Minneapolis, and all my teachers were feminist hippies. And one day they trotted the whole school, the whole elementary school, out into the yard, and they lined us up into the word peace. that could only be seen by above. And at that moment, a helicopter flew over and took a photo,
Just happened to fly over,
which
right?
then ends up in the newspaper, front page of the newspaper. And if that, like, we had no idea what we were doing. Like, we're little ants on the ground, kids. We have no idea what's happening. We're just being herded into shapes in the ground, you know?
Wow.
And the adults were like,
It's
look, the
diabolical.
children are sending you a message. It's like, no, you are using us to send a message.
Yes.
And that is a perfect, and they've just gotten worse, just worse. And that somehow we're supposed to listen to these people. We're supposed to give up the founding fathers established the Second Amendment. They had a lot of reasons for that. And a lot of people agree with that. But, a few kids are sad, and they should be, that their school got shot up by a madman. Or not even, just like, everybody let those kids down. It's not gun rights that let those kids down. It's the FBI, it's the school, it's the Broward County policy about not arresting people that, it's just the crazy,
Right.
If you're a minority,
Right.
whatever, you get off scot-free to lower crime.
Not to mention the whole cultural milieu created by postmodernism
Right.
and the left, and ethical relativism. But yeah, exactly. Like and in the wake of such an event, as tragic as it is, even in the most ideal conditions, you're going to have horrible things happen, which is precisely the reason why people should own guns, and should protect themselves,
right?
because you can't always count on the rationality of other people. You have to take the protection of yourself and your family into your own hands to some extent, and to protect you from criminals and potentially, an oppressive government. But all those kinds of issues and counterexamples, and the sort of context and history and facts you would need to understand them and grasp them are beyond the level of a child, which is exactly why children shouldn't be opining on such things and should be, educated. That's why we're sending them to schools, supposedly.
And the reason that those kids died is Democrats and Democrat policies, and the no gun zone type of thing, and the not arresting minorities, and the FBI not doing anything because I don't know why, because the FBI is.
Well, remember
I
that
guess, not a
program, and we
Democrat
discussed this, where they were letting people go and not prosecuting
Because
people
they're
to get their
minorities.
prosecution rates down.
Right. So again, that's the child mentality of, we need to get our prosecution rates down, so let's just stop prosecuting
Exactly.
minorities.
Everything
and
is a
then
wish.
everything will be better. And it doesn't
Right.
matter that more murders will happen and more crimes will happen and criminals will get off, and it also explained the Trayvon Martin thing, and it was the same county. So I think, if you live on the frontier of America 200 years ago, and you could be attacked by Indians at any moment, if you don't arm yourself and protect yourself, you're an idiot. And so we have these situations today where we seem to have this mass shooting problem. And it's not as common as people say it is, but it can happen. And it's kind of making everybody scared. So carry guns, people. Like, since when in America do we say, ooh, the solution is let's put the guns away and be more sitting ducks to madmen,
Right.
rather than let's take our own safety into our own hands? Because obviously you can't even trust the local sheriff's department to do their job. That guy hid. He didn't go in.
And where is private security? I mean, we have security guards at Walmart. Why don't we have security guards at our schools? I mean, that's not a reasonable expense to have security on site. Someone armed in an office watching the school. I mean, how hard is
I don't even feel like
that?
you can trust that, though, because you get one coward like that.
Oh yeah, of
sheriff's
course.
guy.
Anything can go wrong. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm saying, is that better than nothing?
Any teacher that wants to should have a gun, a concealed gun, and just leave it like that. And the principal should have a rack over his desk with rifles and shotguns lining the wall.
Well, I don't know if I would let the teachers have guns because I had some I think our teachers would have shot us all.
Yeah, that's a really good
But
point.
maybe have a
Today's education departments, the kind of people they're churning out, maybe we don't want them armed. No,
yeah.
but I think the ones who would say, "Yeah, I want to be armed," are probably the more decent ones because they're not emotional, they're not afraid of guns, because guns.
I wanted to also make a point that, with this Greta thing, another point about children. I had written a post a long time ago about a case that had come out in Australia where it was the doctors had been calling it climate change delusion. And this is another consequence of the society that we live in and the effect it's having on kids. When you look at someone like Greta and you see how awful she is and how angry she is. And it reminds me of the kid in charge, on the Twilight Zone episode, how everyone was going around telling him how great he was every time he killed someone because they didn't want to be next.
It's good that you killed the dog. It's great. Isn't it great that he killed the dog?
Yeah, he kills a dog and they're like, good job, Anthony.
Oh, great. And the looks on their faces is like horror. And they're like, and the father comes to the wife and, no, it's good that he killed the dog. Like, right, honey?
Right. And they just hug each other.
He doesn't want his wife to be killed by her own son.
And so this kid in Australia, and I'm sure this is happening elsewhere now, but he was suicidal and had been admitted in what they were calling climate change delusion. And the essence of it was that he had been so brainwashed by the climate alarmists to believe that, every drop of water that he drank, every move that he made, every time he got into a car,
breathing is a carbon.
Was impinging.
Yeah.
Breathing is, you're breathing out the satanic
Pooping.
carbon dioxide
every fart,
fumes.
Every human
Methane.
fart.
Because, by our nature, we have to reshape the earth. I mean, that's our nature. We, to live. So anyways, imagine these children that are growing up and inculcated in this climate hysteria where they're being led to believe that every movement they make is damaging this anthropomorphized earth, this mother earth, which is, they're creating into a living organism. And so, imagine the kind of psychosis that results from that. And, they have a term for it now where they're finding people are suicidal.
Greta clearly has it.
And anxious.
I mean, she sounds sincere. And I think that's why she's effective. She's half in tears when she's saying entire ecosystems are being damaged. We're in an extinction level place where 200 species a day are going extinct, and the ecosystem is going to collapse if it isn't too late. Like, this is what they're telling them, and they always have it's weird that they don't. I think that they try to scare people because if you give them a 50 or 100 year projection, people can't really get excited about that.
No.
And so they say
it's
10
always
years.
10
they
years.
always say 10 years, 12 years. And of course, those of us who've lived longer than 20 years know that there's always a new 10-year
Well, I
apocalypse
posted an article about Paul Ehrlich, the famously wrong Paul Ehrlich, this is from 1970, who was saying, I think it was 1980 was the drop dead year. We were all going to die actually, it was more like 3 or 4 years. The oceans were going to die. And then there was another article from 1989. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and they were telling us this stuff when I was in school.
Right.
But back then it was like acid rain and soil erosion, and we were going to run out of oil and overpopulation and
population explosion. And now we're like 3 billion more people, and people have more food than they had.
Right, and we have more oil.
And more oil. It's so when you hear this shit every 10 years, and then as the circumstances of the world change, they change their prediction. Now it's warming. Now it's cooling. Now it's change in general. But the whole history of climate has changed. So it's just like it.
And as a kid, though, you don't have the history or experience to understand it. You're just saying, oh, my God, an adult's telling me that the world's going to end in 10 years. Of course they're going to be hysterical. They should be hysterical. And that's what leads. And I mean, imagine the kind of psychotic
would you even
population
have dreams for yourself?
educating.
You get all these kids now, too, that are taking the pledge not to have children.
Oh my
So
God.
give up your dreams of marriage and family and happiness. Give up your dreams of career because you only have 10 years.
Right.
So just spend 10 years traveling and having promiscuous sex and eating whatever the hell you want. Even smoke some cigarettes because who gives a shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's so
Right.
evil. And there are other messages too besides this apocalypse thing, but it is becoming so clearly a religion with ritual and a god and crazy
Proselytizing,
beliefs, and
heretics.
you have these priests and the deniers, Joel Olstein Gore, driving his fancy car and flying in private jets, telling you the world's going to end.
Yeah.
We need the government to give billions more dollars to his organizations. Like it's so freaking transparent if you get a few facts. And I just wonder if these kids can be deprogrammed. It's just so, like, you just back up, you can see this really clearly. And the other thing that, like, black kids are being told, racism is systemic. It's all over the place. You can't achieve and succeed like your white American brothers and sisters. Everyone's against you. You can't even be friends with white people. That's what the New York Times writers and the Ta-Nehisi Coates, whatever that guy, he's like one of the, Oprah celebrates that guy. He wrote an article saying I had to tell my kid, like, she can't be friends with white people.
Right. Right.
And that's how black kids are getting raised, with that sort of negativity and helplessness. Everybody's a victim. The world is ending. Everybody hates you. There's no way to succeed. The government has to take care of everybody.
Well, I was listening to a good podcast. This guy Rechtenwald, that NYU professor that was like the fake I forgot what he did. He had that kind of hidden Twitter account that got exposed. But anyways, he was an ex-Marxist who's kind of become a libertarian, and he was on Tom Wood's podcast. And he made a really good point, which made me think a little bit, which was, how we've always thought that the socialists and the left have these like kind of pseudo ideals of brotherly love and and a utopia of the worker, that's what they're really after, right? And what he was saying is collectivism isn't really a means to the end anymore of these abstract ideals. Really, collectivism is the end. So it's not just a means to an end. Like this idea of Marxist exploitation, and the idea that white privilege is all oppressive and you can't escape, and so we have to herd ourselves into these identity groups to protect ourselves from being marginalized, and we have to empower ourselves through these groups. That this is where they are now, is that collectivism in and of itself is the goal, which I found kind of interesting and somewhat frightening because I hadn't thought of it that way. I always kind of saw it more as a means to an end, but it's really the end goal is collectivism.
Somehow it's a little less horrible if they're actually trying to reach some utopia where people are really well off and happy.
Yeah, because that was the old left.
Right,
that was the old left.
That's not their goal anymore. And
they
think Ayn Rand,
they thought they could
Rand
outproduce.
is the one who explained this. In Atlas Shrugged in 1957, she explained this. That it's not about anything, it's a death worship. It's nihilism. It is a death worship. And it is hard to get your mind around that because it's hard to, if you are not on that premise, it's really hard to crawl into the skin of somebody who just wants to destroy. And I think she did a great job. And like James Taggart is the perfect character, the modern day Al Gore type person who's sort of half business, corrupt, and Biden, whose kid just made, $1 million a month, or I don't know how much did he make, unqualified, being on this board of Ukraine, and him threatening Ukraine and getting 20 million over here. And it's like, it's just, you can see the dark in the Atlas Shrugged where they meet in the bar that's in the penthouse but looks like a cave.
Yeah.
You can just see the meetings that would go on, where they're deciding very cynically what they're going to do, but they can't fully admit it to themselves. So they still say, well, it's for the children and it's for these higher ideals, but it really isn't. It really is just nihilism and death.
I have a Atlas Shrugged quote,
I
actually.
want to finish this because the other thing is, remember Dagny? Okay, spoiler alert, everybody. If you haven't watched Atlas Shrugged, forward 2 minutes, and you'll be clear of this because I'm about to spoil something. In the end of the book, again, if you haven't read it, stop right now because there's a surprise ending.
Or it doesn't matter.
At the end of the book, Dagny, her whole character arc, is to come to understand this. To come to understand that they don't want things fixed. They don't want people to thrive. They don't want what's good for everybody. And they're just mistaken about how to achieve that. And they're just ignorant or whatever. That isn't the case. They're actually on a death premise. And in that moment, she's able to let go of the world and go to the valley. And it isn't until then that so her whole character arc is about coming to this realization. And I almost think that it's one of the sort of sub-themes, if not, the main theme is supposedly the mind, the productive mind being the most important mover of the world. But there's a sub-theme there that all of our enemies are on a death premise. So.
Well, just to encapsulate this a little bit, because we've been talking about that and the left and this idea of them wishing, right? Like children, like they would love for things to be free. You want housing, you get a house. You want college, you get college. You want money, create the money. Modern monetary theory or Keynesian economics. Whatever you want, you can just have it. And that's the premise of socialism and this utopian narrative that they're all behind. And there's a great quote from Atlas Shrugged, which kind of, I think, conceptualizes this or epitomizes it. And she said, that is the whole of their shabby secret, the secret of all their esoteric philosophies, of all their dialectics and super senses, of their evasive eyes and snarling words, the secret for which they destroy civilization, language, industries, and lives, the secret for which they pierce their own eyes and eardrums, grind out their senses, blank out their minds, the purpose for which they dissolve the absolutes of reason, logic, matter, existence, reality, is to erect upon that plastic fog a single holy absolute, their wish. The restriction they seek to escape is the law of identity.
Yeah.
The freedom they seek is freedom from the fact that an A will remain an A, no matter what their tears or tantrums, Greta, that a river will not bring them milk no matter what their hunger, that water will not run uphill no matter what comforts they could gain if it did. And if they want to lift it to the roof of a skyscraper, they must do it by a process of thought and labor in which the nature of an inch of pipeline counts, but their feelings do not, that their feelings are impotent to alter the course of a single speck of dust in space or the nature of any action they have committed. So I love the idea that all the evil in the world at root is people wishing for things to not be what they are.
Yeah.
And that's really the essence of the left. It's when you watch those debates, they're in a fantasy.
It's a toddler tantrum. Stop singing.
I want to sing.
Oh,
I want to
okay.
be a boy.
I didn't know you just wanted to sing. Like, why don't you ask nicely? Disappear into the cornfield.
And it really is. It's just this whole idea that they this in failure or unwillingness for a child to grasp cause and effect, that you have to take certain actions and there's certain causes result in certain effects. You can't just
and they're
wish for
stamping their
things
foot at that.
and have
Yeah, and that's where the nihilism comes in. I can't have what I wish, and
So
then they just stomp on it. Yeah, I'll destroy it. So that's the world, and I think that's for all people, there are people who have bad TDS and they don't like Trump. But even back when I hated his guts, which I did at one point, I thought he was good for the culture because he was so unwilling to play the PC game and not, push on all of these people. Like, oh my God, his tweet about Greta was great.
Yeah.
She seems like a happy, well-adjusted child who's looking forward to a bright future.
Exactly.
That was troll level 10. I almost think that Stephen Miller came up with that.
Yeah, one of them did.
That was so clever and sarcastic. It sounded like Stephen Miller to me. But anyway, great tweet. The fact that Trump is willing to send that out. He's the leader of the free world, and he tweets out something like that, which is just a sarcastic slam on that girl. And for whatever, that's not presidential or whatever, it is great for our culture, because what we have to do with these people is just make fun of them.
Yes.
It's absurd, and they are not going to be reasoned with. There is no civil out. There's no way to get out of this civilly. The only way out of this is to fight, and that is through ridicule. And hopefully, at this point, it is too early to physically fight. Just look at what happened to the Proud Boys. They just went out and tried to defend themselves against Antifa, and they're now being prosecuted for felony assault in New York. I guess you have to be careful what city you do it in. But Antifa very cleverly only operates in cities where they're protected by the law. It's like a fucking gangster racket.
Yeah.
And so, don't you dare physically defend yourself. And they've effectively shut down protesting, right-sided protesting, because you can get injured. We need to take a lesson from Hong Kong and not be so afraid of that. But only when we feel we can fight back should we, with a chance to win. I don't think we should do it, and I don't think we have that chance right now. But I think we're headed there, because I don't see they're not going to backtrack.
No.
And look what the Democrats are doing today and how bad it's getting. You talk about childish whim worship. Watch a Democrat debate. And you get a free car, and you get free health care, and and open the borders and give everybody some health care, and take away the guns.
It reminds me of when they do the crazy things that kids say. And, they interview kids what do you want for Christmas? Or how do you want the world to change? And they're, I would like to have whatever,
I
a
want
unicorn.
Santa Claus to run the world.
Yeah. That's the Democratic debate. I mean, it's no different.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
So they are doubling and tripling and quadrupling down. The media is crazy. The media is, Trump had a really good press conference after the UN thing where he came out and said, we have just made historic deals with Japan. And when, he's talking about the trade deals that he's just closed, and nobody's reporting on it. Nobody's talking about it.
No.
No news. We're not getting the news, everybody.
No. No news.
We're getting total distraction from, just cast your mind back. What was it last week? It wasn't Greta. What was it? It was.
I can't remember back that far. I mean, it was the latest. It was, it's amazing these cycles, these news cycles, and how they just drive.
Can you remember what it was? It was Epstein a month ago.
Oh yeah, remember when Epstein died? That was last month.
Right.
And there was a pedophile conspiracy. No, that's over. What about the Russia thing?
Oh yeah.
Weren't we told for 2 years?
This is what it was before Greta. It was Ukraine. It was Joe Biden is corrupt, therefore Trump must be impeached.
Yep, now it's impeachment.
Because Joe Biden's corrupt.
Because Joe Biden bribed the Ukrainian government to get a prosecutor.
I find that really interesting that we went after Trump for Russia collusion when Hillary actually did the Russia collusion under Obama. Let's bring Obama into this, because God damn it, he was president. What happened in his State Department happened on his watch. So Hillary did corrupt things with Russia. Joe Biden did corrupt things with Ukraine, threaten them and so on. And we're going to attack and go after Trump for both of those things. And I feel like it's just deflection. They know that Trump's innocent.
Well, that's what Devin Nunes said in his opening statement today. He said exactly what you just said, that I find it funny that with the Russian thing, it was the Democrats that were conspiring with the Russians. And here we have Joe Biden and the Democrats conspiring with Ukraine, but we're going to impeach Trump.
Yeah, not only Biden, but those senators sending the letter to Ukraine and saying, if you haven't heard about this, some Democrat senators sent a letter to the president of the Ukraine and said, hey, you better do what we want, or you're not going to have our support to approve the $1 billion, contract that you get every year for military support. And so it was them that did exactly what they're accusing Trump of doing. But when he does it, they want to impeach him. I mean, it's all just bullshit. And if they didn't have the media, they couldn't get away with it.
And I'm starting to think, Sonny, we're already arguing now about rigging the 2020 election, and it's a year away, and we're talking about everything is about the 2020 election. How in the world, the last 4 years has been a shit show, and we're still fighting over the 2016 election.
Right.
How is this going to really play? I mean, this country could really be headed for some serious conflict, because how does this play out? I mean, if Trump wins, right, and the Democrats are already saying he's an illegitimate, imposter or something because of 2016 and now 2020, and they're unhinged about the Supreme Court and Kavanaugh. I mean, all the stuff that we've gone through as a country. If he wins again, what are they going to do? And to what extreme are they going to go to now to get him out? I mean, short of trying to assassinate him.
Yeah.
I mean, that.
And if he loses, I don't think most of us will believe it. I think that we will believe that it was corrupt. And then the other thing is, if he loses, I'm terrified of the next Democrat president, because I think the revenge that's going to be taken on us, they're already very openly saying that we are evil, that we are not to be tolerated, that they're going to take our guns, that they're going to silence us. They don't have any respect for the Bill of Rights. And Obama was so corrupt. Look at all the stuff that happened under Obama, and it will be worse. They're way more open about it now. And I guarantee you, the next Democrat that's president, guess who's going to be our attorney general? Keith Ellison. They're grooming him for that position by making him attorney general of Minnesota.
Wow, good point.
And he is the most evil piece of shit. Take it from somebody who used to be in his district.
Yeah.
And he is a Jew-hating Muslim, evil piece of shit who does not care about the law at all. He is utterly corrupt, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm not supposed to say that. That's like slander, isn't it?
He's a public figure.
He could sue me. But yeah, I mean, he's very dangerous, and he will take it out. They will take it out on us, everybody, and that will lead to war. And I don't know that we'll win. So I don't want.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, either way, if Trump loses, it's going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
And if he wins, it's going to be a shit show. So what I'm saying is, there's so much hysteria while he's president. I mean, think of the things they're doing to him while he's president. Think of what's going to happen if he loses, if there's any question as to the legitimacy. And we're in Banana Republic territory where, can you trust the voting machines?
Yeah.
What company, programmed the voting machines?
Right.
Well, those companies, the union of that company there's a union that votes primarily Democratic that has the workers that make those machines. I mean, so there's infinite fodder for conspiracy theories, legitimate conspiracy theories about,
right.
And who knows where it'll go.
You have states who have passed this ballot harvesting thing, where they don't like the outcome. They can just, after the election, go door to door, only to Democrat houses, of people who did not submit a ballot, and on the spot have them sign a ballot. And this is ripe for corruption, because you could even go to Republican households, have them sign it, and then fill it in for them. And because the idea is that a third party can turn in a ballot without being. It used to be that you had to be a relative. Now it can be. In California, they passed this 2 years ago, and I don't know how this shit gets done here, but they passed it, and then they sprang it on everybody, and the Orange County area elected 6 representatives to Congress, Republican representatives, and then after the election, those people had already gone to Washington and were moving into their offices, when 2 weeks later, the Democrats came out with 250,000 additional Democrat votes and wiped out all 6 of those victories.
Wow.
And that same law, I think, just got passed in Colorado. So anywhere where there's like a super majority of Dems, they're passing this law because it helps them. And it's so evil. And of course, what did the Republicans in California do in response to that? They didn't go to war over it. We didn't take to the streets. Nobody said, we need to take to the streets. This is an absolute disenfranchisement of every Republican in this state. If everything else isn't already, no, they filed a lawsuit or something that takes 5-10 years to resolve. You know, in the meantime, they're going to take over the whole country that way.
Yeah.
So they can do that for a presidential election too. The president gets elected, then after they go door to door and sweep up. It's called ballot harvesting. They harvest as many votes as they need because they know the outcome. So they just keep at it till they have enough to wipe out any victory they want.
Well, much less the proposals to allow illegal immigrants to vote. Oh my God!
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
that's the other thing here. I mean,
it's
we all
crazy.
know that.
I just think we're going towards a point where national elections are going to be impossible,
right?
like practically and logistically.
Or
and
the credibility won't be there. And what happens?
that's what
Will
I mean.
Americans stand up when the credibility is not there?
No, because one side will believe that the other side won unfairly, and so there will be no respect for the rule of law. And I really think that, I mean, ultimately, I think the solution is for states to probably start to break away from the union and just to become nations and assert their sovereignty again.
Right.
I mean, we're already seeing nullification. You know, nullification used to be something that the right did, and now we're seeing the left do it with these sanctuary cities and refusing ICE and stuff like that. I mean, they're starting to do nullification. So, I mean, if both sides are going to start to nullify federal law and just disregard Supreme Court decisions or, you know, immigration laws or whatever and just do their own thing, then maybe that'll ultimately happen where the states will break off. But, you know, between then and now, if that ever does happen, which I think is a peaceful way to resolve this, just say, California, go do your own thing.
Right.
Alabama, you go do your thing.
Right.
You know, you guys, why are we forcing people in Alabama to do what people in California want to do and vice versa? So I think that's ultimately the solution. But in the meantime, it's going to be really ugly.
That's
because
too reasonable. They won't allow that.
No, because they want one law. They want everyone to live on one government.
And they know down deep in their hearts that it's the right that has the money. You know? The production. Yeah, kind of. I guess there's a lot of wealthy people who are...
Oh, Silicon Valley. I mean, Hollywood.
Right. You're right. We don't have the money.
I don't know. I mean, I just think this is becoming increasingly precarious.
Oh my God, we're in so much trouble. The only thing we have going for us is that we all have guns.
Yeah, that's it. No, never give away your gun.
Never do it. Anyway. All right. Well, that's it for the show today. I think it's all negative, everybody. We sound like the adults around Greta Thunberg.
No,
You're
we're going to do a positive
10
show.
years. It's all going to be over.
I was gonna actually ask you if you wanted to do a show with the theme of "Do we live in a golden age?" And I was going to say yes, we do, and cite all the evidence why we do. So maybe we should do that.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, we're all living pretty good lives, you know. But I worry that we're gonna I honestly I think, I'm sorry to say this, but when I saw what happened in California and the fizzly response of people with guns, where we didn't do anything and nobody called, there was no leadership saying, oh my God, do something. And it just happened. And of course, immigration is sweeping over Texas. And what are you going to do? Go to war and kick out the Mexicans? I mean, really? Is that really going to happen? I don't think good people would do that.
Mm-mm.
So we're just being kind of overtaken slowly, and slowly we're going to lose all our rights, and slowly we're going to just put up with it, and then you know, we'll just slowly deteriorate.
Yeah, I'm increasingly fatalistic about it.
It's been socialist for a long time, and it's still pretty nice life here. You know, but a woman who's helping me out locally, who's kind of my nanny, she's moving today from the area to further inland because the rent has gotten too expensive here. Mm-hmm. So she has to keep hopping suburbs, going further and further inland from the coast because she keeps getting priced out of her apartment. Mm-hmm. And she has a couple kids. She's married. You know, she's just not one of the 1%.
Yeah, and they won't build more houses because that would impinge on Mother Earth. So, so there's no...
But if you are the 1% out here, it's not bad. It's pretty nice. The incomes are high, and so things are very luxurious. So anyway, it's a golden age for the 1%.
Yeah, right.
That's a lesson. Everybody get the hell into the 1% as fast as you can.
Yeah, you 99ers.
Get in the 1%. You'll have
Everything's
you
fine.
can live your life out in peace. All right, that's it for the show today. Thanks for joining us. Go over to Subscribestar and support our show, or you can donate on PayPal. You can just go to houseofsunny.tv and do a one-time donation if you like. We appreciate all your support. And that's it for today. We'll see you in a week or two. Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. We are completely fan-funded, so we need your support. Look for House of Sunny at subscribestar.com to sign up to be a member of my elite squad. Or you can go to houseofsunny.tv and make a one-time PayPal donation. Thank you.